Over the last 30 days, I've gone from being lucky to hold a 5-second handstand all the way to holding consistent sets of 10 seconds. Here's everything I did. My goal was to do something every single day for like 5 to 10 minutes, trying to keep it short and fun. On days I was training, I tried to do it before my training session so that I had fresh brain power and didn't have any built-up fatigue from that session. And every single day, regardless of how I felt, I did a warm-up. I really wanted to keep these sessions fun and varied so that I looked forward to doing them. And while that mostly stayed true, not everything went to plan. My warm-ups ended up being about 4 minutes. There were 4 sections and each section takes about a minute. I'd start with my shoulder stretches. Then I'd do wrist stretches in 4 different positions, moving on to strengthen the wrists and finish off with a handstand primer. Then I would move on to that day's work. At the start of this challenge, I could already kick up into a handstand, although I was doing a lot of stuff that was probably setting me up for failure. I just didn't know it at the time. So getting upside down wasn't the issue. Initially, my goal was to vary it up between doing handstands, headstands, position drills on the floor, and a little bit of mobility. But what I found was that with so little time, I ended up just doing some sort of strength exercise at the wall and mobility in between those sets. I was really concerned at the start that my wrists were going to get injured from doing all this handstand work. But actually what I found is that they've just felt stronger and stronger throughout the month. I think in hindsight, if I was a beginner, a lot more variety would have been super helpful to really help iron out the positions and getting used to getting upside down. But as I could hold most headstand variations for a full minute, and the position drills I could do, although they're always a good reminder, is most beneficial just to focus on those wall drills. You might be wondering, well, why use a wall and not just kick up freestanding? And it really comes down to position. If we even compare a wall facing versus facing out from a wall, you'll see the position is totally different. We can really grip the floor with our hands and stop yourself falling forward. Your shoulders are stacked neatly over your knuckles. You can really shrug into the shoulders. The wall's a great reminder to push your ribs up towards your hips and to tuck those hips, all while keeping the toes pointed. Beautiful. Now, I did end up doing some freestanding holds most days. More on that later. Very early on, I got a 15-second hold out of nowhere. I had no right to get that. But it took about 20 days before I could do that again. Although at that stage, if I just tried enough, I could get one hold about 15 to 20 seconds. I think this was probably because about 15 days in, I found holding on a wall for about 30 seconds pretty comfortable. And so I'd really advance that on and I'd start to use movements like waves, flutters, or just balancing right close to the wall. So what went wrong? Because I also decided to make 30 videos in 30 days, my sessions often drifted towards I need to make a video rather than just having fun with handstands. So what should have been just a fun 10 minutes a day ended up being closer to an hour when you add in all the editing time and thinking about what the video was going to be. And then because I was making these videos, I did a handstand hold so I could have a clip of that for the video. And I probably ended up reinforcing a bunch of bad habits just by kicking up and up and up, trying to get a good moment for the video. It's very difficult to be disciplined and not fall into that trap of, oh, just one more, or, oh, I almost had it. I'll just try again. Because I really think I slowed my progress by doing this. And then, as I mentioned before, I had planned on a lot more variety, but ended up doing the same 2 to 3 exercises. But I wouldn't think of this as a bad thing. It's just when I was planning, I didn't fully know what I needed. And this ended up, I think, being a good thing. Why spend all this time learning a handstand, you say? Because it's cool, look at it. Look at it! I know some people will do this because of cool photos or videos in these beautiful locations, but really, I kind of do it as a contrast to life. For me, I think because my head is quite stormy, it's really nice to have something that requires stillness and focus without distractions. There were some unexpected benefits. I mostly work at a desk, and I found my neck had been getting super sore, and I even had this lump kind of so that I couldn't turn properly. I tried to crack my neck all the time, but I just couldn't get any relief. And since starting this, it's largely gone away. When I went to see Gareth, he reckoned the extra blood flow and muscle engagement has really stimulated the area and helped sort it out. And while it shouldn't surprise me, it always does whenever other movements suddenly feel better and stronger without having directly worked on them. But the crossover between supporting your body weight and holding a weight overhead is pretty legit. Just the other day, I had these overhead squats and Turkish get-ups in my workout, and normally I would get sore shoulders either during or the next day. Nothing. Just sweet. I'd love to say that I went from 0 to 30 seconds in 30 days, but that was never the goal. This never started out as a YouTube challenge, one of those things where you try to learn something as fast as possible and then move on and never do it again. Not only was I not starting from 0, but I've also set myself a goal to hold a 1-minute handstand in 2026. And with that bigger goal in mind, I really wanted to avoid injury or burnout. Most 30-day challenges are massively unsustainable. They're designed that way. They help get this burst of progress, which really helps your motivation. But the risk is, without having that larger goal or that transition to something more sustainable, you move on and you lose everything that you just made progress on. So after 30 days, I feel I can pretty reliably kick up into a handstand and hold it for about 10 seconds. And to me, that feels like a huge tipping point. When you look at the bigger goal of trying to hold a 1-minute handstand this year, if initially I could reliably get 3 seconds, I'd have to do like 10 sets to get 30 seconds of practice in the session, where now I could do that in 3 sets. At the start, I wasn't doing 10 sets, just to be clear, but that progress to me feels pretty significant. What I haven't decided is if progress is linear, if it's this parabolic curve, this other parabolic curve, or if it's more like a normal distribution where initially you're not making much progress and then all of a sudden you make this huge jump, and then as you get closer to that goal, you reach this sort of stagnation point where it gets harder and harder and harder. But I think you can only see progress in hindsight, so this is something I can look forward to looking back on. The big question is, should anybody else try this? And I think the answer is yes. I think learning a handstand is something anyone could benefit from, as well as have a lot of fun doing. If you look at kids will instinctively kick up and try a handstand if they see somebody else doing it. But then as adults, we kind of switch to a more, oh, it's cool for them kind of viewpoint. You don't need any special equipment other than a wall. And if you're worried about making marks on it, just wear clean socks. And you can make a lot of progress in not very much time spent on it. So yeah, I'd say give it a go and let me know in the comments if you are going to challenge yourself. Thanks very much for joining me. If you do want to see more handstand content, please consider subscribing. Bye.